in the 1790s and the first decade of the 1800s, whenever our Salzburger ancestors had spread out into the northern part of the county, the need for a church to serve the northern part of the county was realized. So in the time frame of 1807 to 1809, land was surveyed and the grant was recorded and filed, giving John and George Arnsdorf property for a school for the children in the area, and a church, a gathering of a congregation was begun soon after that in a bush arbor. Later decades, we have the founding of Bethel Lutheran Church. We're here behind the church today because that's Highway 21 out there, Georgia Highway 21, and it is loud. So we're here behind the church in the cemetery that we're going to be surveying with this series of videos. Now, this cemetery wasn't started until 1884. That's when burials were held here. Before that, the members of Bethel were buried either on family property or in small family cemeteries or in the share house burial grounds located north of Springfield. So in the 1840s and 50s, 1860s and 70s included, the majority of the burials were held at the share house burial grounds, or share house burial grounds, however you want to say it. We have two graves that we're going to go look at right now that were the first two burials at Bethel, one in 1877 and one in 1881. Those two graves are in a fenced-in area located on the north side of the church. The first one here in 1877 was that of Jonathan Schneider, and then here in 1881 his wife, who was an Arnsdorf, was buried. Now her grave, Hester Caroline Arnsdorf, her grave says wife of George Foy. She'd been married to George Foy for a very short time after her first husband died. George Foy was buried at Elam, Egypt, several miles up the road and over, and she was buried here by her husband. She had no children, so husband and wife were buried together. Now Hester's parents are John and Sarah Morgan Arnsdorf, and they are buried at the share house burial grounds where a lot of Hester's siblings are. So she was buried by her first husband, who was the first grave. One reason for the kind of the moving about of where are we going to bury our members, Bethel had a lot of water, held a lot of water in places, and I have a really neat story to tell. Well, it's an interesting story to tell in a later video. But we have ranches in the southern part of this area, and then just to our north we have Turkey Ranch and Hindley Ranch. So it's a lot of water, high water table, a problem with burials, and so bury people here first, bury the majority of the members back there behind the church. Hopefully you can tell behind me the scope of this cemetery here at Bethel. There are hundreds of graves spanning this whole piece of property. Some of the notable German-speaking families were Arnsdorf, Gnan, Seckinger, Friarmouth, Height, Schneider, Sharehouse, Rimchard, and there were Morgans and Kiefers in this fellowship as well. The community was bragged upon as being very upstanding and moral. They were very determined, and their endurance was bragged upon as well. And so one thing I did want to point out, right here there are probably a dozen unknown graves. They're not unmarked. There are concrete crosses at these graves, but they are not known for sure. Now some of them may be known, but not all of them are known who's buried there. The other thing I did want to mention, whenever you see my survey, we're going to be placing the stills of the stones on screen. So you're going to see a series of headstones coming across your screen. And whenever you hear me refer to the parents of the deceased, I am going to say, for example, Hester Caroline Arnsdorf. You just saw her grave a minute ago. The daughter of John and Sarah Morgan Arnsdorf. Now, her mother's name was Sarah Morgan. Her father's name was John Arnsdorf. But whenever I say the name, I'm going to say father's first name and mother's first name, mother's maiden name, and then the family name. So that's how I'm going to refer to the graves, the headstones of the deceased.
This headstone of Ellen Eugenia Seckingers appears to be a cenotaph located in the Seckinger plot of Thomas Seckinger. Jonathan Schneider was the son of Jonathan and Elizabeth Gannan Schneider and the husband of Hester Caroline Arnsdorf. Walla Gertrude Scherhaus was the daughter of Charles and Emily Scherhaus, and she died in September 1877. Hester Caroline Arnsdorf was the daughter of John and Sarah Morgan Arnsdorf. Her first husband was Jonathan Schneider, and her second husband was George Foy. Gideon Seckinger appears to be another cenotaph located in the lot of Thomas Seckinger. I know this Thibault headstone is a cenotaph because Mr. Charles Thibault was buried in the family cemetery off 119. Jonathan Scherhaus was the son of Emmanuel and Lydia Height Scherhaus and appears to be the first grave to have been buried at Bethel, October 1884. John Schneider was the brother of Jonathan Schneider, and he was the son of Jonathan and Elizabeth Gannan Schneider and the husband of Jane Amanda Arnsdorf. Here's Susie Usher's grave. She was the daughter of Jeremiah and Sarah Seckinger Usher, and on the back of her tombstone you will see her birth and her death day, not quite 14 years old. Jenny Bell Ward was the adopted daughter of Benjamin Dasher and his wife. Asbury Bascom Seckinger was the son of Thomas and Lavinia Arnsdorf Seckinger. This is Belphina Cook. I found no primary documents to prove who her parents were. Laura Ferns was the daughter of Charles and Melissa Arnsdorf Ferns. Cecil Arnsdorf, another young child. I have no primary evidence about his parents. And here we have the wife of Reverend Wingard, Henry Wingard, who was the pastor of Bethel. Caroline Elizabeth Wingard was a Bowers.